So we are now at the season finale of season 1. And just a quick recap, how I started this season was with a 2-part episode or 2-part series on how I arrived here. This was my origin story, my bio. And it was interesting. I started the season with this bio because I was creating a website and I was getting my online presence going. So this bio was like a really great excuse to get in and start podcasting. I'd always wanted to podcast, but I was kind of putting it off a little bit and still working around what does this even look like. And so I was grateful for the energetic boost in doing it. Like, I'd rather read my bio. I don't want to write my bio. That feels really weird. So I really got into it by doing this bio and recording it, and it felt like a 2 birds, 1 stone scenario. I love energetic efficiencies. I don't want to use my energy I want to be smarter, working smarter, not harder. I don't want to use my energy in wasteful ways, let's say. So that's kind of what got me started. And then I looked at this season of numbness and a call to be still, because I've visited this place many times, mostly in winter. So looking at that and really just looking at it in a dual perspective, looking at, numbness and stillness as being similar or one and the same, and reaching for a more exalted form of numbness, which would be stillness, and really embracing the idea of stillness. And then I looked at desire and envy and celebration. That was like the antithesis, I think, of stillness. Like what's the flip side when you finally have that energy just sitting? Where do you go from there when you feel the energy growing and growing and growing, and what does that look like? And how, celebration is part of the whole transformative process, a really important part. And I also looked at desire and envy, like on the role of looking at, numbness and stillness, and how to look at the exalted form, and looking at desire and envy and what that meant for me, and how it kind of pulled me out of stillness, like my desire, my envy, I like that. What if that's just, me appreciating something that I like, that's going to call me out of this, cozy little hibernation. Then I looked at sexuality and labels and fluidity, and this was something that I taught at the college, and I really loved that, and so I wanted to revisit it. And from there, I took a little bit of time, and I was going through sort of my own contemplation of transformation, because I'd been going through yet another cycle of transformation, and really putting it in a contextual format, like more linear, more from an observer perspective, and really bringing that through. So that's where I got the 7-part series on transformation and trust. So that's sort of the first season in a nutshell, and it was really fun. I really, as I said, wanted to make a podcast, and December of 2021 helped me really click into an online presence. And then through this process, I've been coming to terms with my own transitions and seasons and transformation. And so I've gone through this cycle, as I mentioned, a few times very consciously. I say a few, like over and over again, in many ways throughout a year, but then in larger ways throughout grander life transitions. And I've come to understand transformation from a cognitive and symbolic sense. And then I've also felt transition cascade through my body in like a somatic sense, in a releasing sense, and connecting that with my nervous system and how things felt, and things that I previously sort of ignored, or things that started to feel tight or hectic or chaotic, and really noticing how that felt in my body, and thinking, okay, well, how do I work with this? And what does transformation look like when I'm fully aware and fully conscious, and really coming from that observer perspective and being really present with it. And so I've been feeling transformation consciously, I'd say, for over 10 years. And each round I become more conscious of the mechanics, like the stages and the symbolic meaning of each stage. I would say more recently, I've been able to connect it to the poetic archetypal framework of alchemy, and literally feeling the transformation in terms of alchemy, like what it felt like to take things that felt very dark and dense and shadowy and confusing and limiting, and sort of transmute or transform or work with them and knead them and, really breathe into them and shift them into light and clear and possibility. Really taking that fear and victimhood and transforming it into self-determined self-love, self-acceptance, and wholeness, that self-determined growth, as opposed to, I would say, before I would go through transition and it would be in the thrashing stages that I'd really even notice I was transforming, or even in retrospect I'd notice transformation. And now it's conscious, and sometimes it's even like intentional and self-initiated, and I'm sure you've all felt that at certain moments where you've initiated a transformation, but certain larger ones where I'm starting to reckon with identity shifts, like releasing programming, releasing aspects that I still held as less than, right? And bringing everything I've said throughout the season into one complete tapestry. Like all of it's used, none of it's thrown away in terms of being segregated off. It's more like, how can it be brought into the furnace, burnt up, and become nutrients for growth, right? And so I've done this, luckily, with the support of many healers, readers, energetic healers, somatic healers, therapists, psychotherapy coaches. I've had so many incredible people around, and with the age of the internet, it's been so helpful to be able to hop on a Zoom with someone in Hawaii or in Germany or, in France, and been able to connect with people, even people, in Toronto, and really lean on other people who have gone through transition themselves or very much understand specific aspects of transformation, who are, in integrity, to be able to hold a mirror up and really allow a self-led transformation to happen with support, with scaffolding, with a healthy mirror, which has been really incredible. And so it's been really, really refreshing to remember the perfection of my individual experience and navigate that with my own sovereignty and authority and autonomy, using my own intuition and my own internal compass, my own internal guidance, and with the help and presence of others, with the loving presence of others, to really navigate transformation. And it's become something that seemed really, again, like something that's like, you've had a burlap sack thrown over you, you're tossed in the back of a van, and suddenly you're putting two and two together, and okay, I'm forced into transformation, as opposed to like a really beautiful process that honors the whole thing from tip to tail, that honors the cycles, the natural cycles, that you actually get excited, like, yes, the breakdown is coming, and yes, it does feel angsty or painful or tricky or cumbersome or vulnerable or painful, but at the same time, I've been here so many times before, and I know the bliss that comes on the other side of it. I know the come up, the glow up, the wholeness, the self-love, the total appreciation, the acceptance that I get to feel when I really surrender into the process. And every time I do this, I get more conscious of it. And every time I do this, I get surrounded by more loving individuals that really help me remember how we all are here with one another. We're all connected. I love that saying that we're walking each other home. And this gets to be remembered, reignited, reintegrated. I recognize, I love the word when you think about it, recognize. I recognize the fact that we are here together and that there is a thread of humanity that binds us all together when we're able to open up to that at a soul level. So transformation has become something that's really beautiful to me, and it's helped me sort of connect in, with what I've been able to walk out with other women for portions, for individual sessions, for sections, for whole seasons, for years. Some people I've been working with for years. And I've been able to walk with many women through sections of their own homecoming, their own coming back to self-acceptance through self-healing. I've helped women during seasons of depression, during agoraphobia and releasing agoraphobia, during transitions like divorce completion or relationship transitions, through what some would call ascension, spiritual awakening, spiritual understanding. I've helped women with manifestation of goals and stepping into greater levels of self-mastery. I've helped women from feeling lost and depleted to feeling hopeful and abundant and excited about the newness, the freshness, right? I've helped women release stuck energy and trauma in their heart, in their womb. I've helped women release anger and resentment. And I've walked with women as they stepped into empowered aspects of themselves, healing their inner blocks, meeting their inner child, being able to find themselves in meditation in a way that really helps them connect and ground in with the essence of who they are. And I know these words are used quite a bit, but sometimes they're the perfect words to describe exactly what it is we're doing. And so I've helped a lot of women release inner blocks, inner programs that aren't helpful, to help them connect with the potential, right? Once they've remembered and released the old, they've been able to vision in things that they didn't think were possible for them, that weren't even in the realm of perspective of it wasn't even something on the list because it wasn't even something that they thought was for them, and it was something they sort of bypassed. And once, clearing old programming of what was for them, what they deserved, what they even desired, the new levels of desire that get opened and awakened in you once you release old programming, old ways of speaking to yourself, once you release old ideas of what you can accomplish or what's here in this life for you. When we flip over from that surviving to thriving aspect, right? There's a whole new potential. And so together we have visioned in and identified next steps to big, bold desires. And we've begun the creation process, and it's been really, really incredible. So as summer 2022 rolled in, I felt compelled to catalog my current reflections on transformation and my feeling into trusting life, which ultimately meant trusting self. This was that 7-part series that I was talking about, where I really explored the themes, the energies, the archetypal aspects of transformation. So if you look in the series, it'll be the last 7 episodes. But I realized throughout this process that I really enjoyed certain aspects, and I just want to recap some of the things that I enjoy so much. As I said a few minutes ago, I really do enjoy the beauty of transformation. And I think before I felt a little hoodwinked by it, perhaps in my teenage years, adolescent transformation really felt like it crept up in a really, uncomfortable way. And then, in my 20s, it felt empowering, but then like, being given a Ferrari, like suddenly I can go real fast and I'm going all the time, and like I'm at the helm of my creation, but I'm not really fully sure of what I want, and my values are kind of just based on, well, what didn't I get to do in my teen years that I'm like just ready to do. So like earning my own money and spending it whatever way I want in this hot and fast way. And so transformation then again felt a little bit like being given a power washer without the muscles to really hold it and direct it. And in my 20s, having kids, and like I can have a kid, I can have a baby, I can have a family, I can do this, and then being like, but this is like the big leagues, this is serious, having a family, and like going through relationship completion and marriage completion, and just okay, this is what it means when you get the intuitive hit that it is finished. There's something finished here. And as much as society sees it one way, or as much as you planned on it being one way, or as much as you might feel victimized by a situation, it's like you've got your marching orders. It's time to start walking. And so there were so many different times in my life where transition felt really feverish, I suppose. And this last round of it has been really, really cool because I've been so present in so many ways, and it's like all the while there's a version of me going through transition and transformation. There's another version of me that's aptly taking notes, that has her glasses on, has her notebook, and just okay, taking notes, seeing the patterns, seeing the signs, reading the energy in the wind, what's coming down the pipeline, and really being present for it. And that's been so incredible. So as I said, there's some things I really enjoy about the process, and I really enjoy the fact that it has become quite beautiful, and that I'm quite steady in the process despite being unsteady and vulnerable at the same time. There's like a core stability that feels really grounded and really fully home and fully here. And so I realized that I love the unraveling. I love the deprogramming. I love the deconstruction. I love the releasing and the shedding of the old skin, the molting, the, snake archetype, the snake symbology. I love the releasing, right? This includes identities. It includes, mainly victimhood, everywhere that I felt powerless or victimized or wanting to go into old behaviors that I finally identified did not feel good. Even the most subtle ones, like judgment and gossip, as knee-jerk reactions to defensiveness, as defensive, aspects of vindictiveness or whatever, and just seeing how even subtly, I was committed to not saying anything if it didn't, hold weight or gravitas to create better futures, but really going through and combing through the thought processes. And okay, well, that's really interesting that I might have an inclination to be competitive there and not making myself wrong, but why is that? Where's that competitiveness coming from? What does that envy mean? As I said in the beginning of the season, where I looked at desire and envy, and let's not villainize every aspect that comes up for us that we don't like, but let's sit with it and ask it what it wants to show me, and really just being available to looking at it from all sides, not just a condemning side. And so, the deprogramming, the deconstruction, the releasing, the shedding, but shedding from a place of celebration. Like, I see what you were here for. I see how you manifested in the past, and I embrace this aspect of you that is here for the future. So I had a bit of a rebellious side that didn't like control, but I realized that rebellious side is the part of me that embraces change and knows when it's time to go. So I don't have to look at it condemningly, and I don't have to use it as rebelliousness for the sake of just being rebelliousness in a brash way. It's the rebelliousness that's actually the leader in the area of change and growth and what needs to be revolutionized for the sake of, our evolution, our growth, for our sustainability as a species or as in my own life. What is no longer sustainable to keep, and how can I rebel against the old structures of thought that kept me in this programmed habit? So I love that, the deconstruction. The fragile stage of the unknown. Oh, this is such a sweet stage, and yet it was probably one of my more uncomfortable stages, like being vulnerable, being fragile, being new, not really knowing, being like in the vulnerability and the pure potential. Like, what do I want? I don't know. I don't even know what should I even aim for? What should I shoot for? What's even possible? And like holding at bay all of the things that would want to flood in and rush in around those moments, and really being like, okay, let me ask what I want and hold space long enough for something inspiring, for something synchronistic, for something that really comes from the depths of me to show itself, as opposed to filling it with something that my ego or my mind or, another idea of someone else's that felt kind of good, like instead of letting that fill that void and that space, really knowing how to hold the void, hold the space of pure potential, so I could see the most authentic ideas pop through, the most sustainable, long-lasting, enjoyable, like the deepest desires that came from the heart pop up, not the desires that come from, the sugary ones that are fun, and not dogging those either, but I spent a lot of time distracted by those sugary desires that I didn't feel like the deepest heart desires come up unless I got really quiet. Another aspect of transition that I loved is the steadfast visioning. So once knowing that, like holding the new space, holding the new pattern, once I figured, okay, this is not a behavior pattern I want to continue with anymore. This is something that really I've gone through this over and over and over again. I know darn well that this is not something that I want anymore, but it's easy to let in. Holding the form, holding the grid, holding the void long enough for the new to grow, right? So keeping the weeds out long enough to let my baby sprouts start to pop up from the earth. And I just love that, being steadfast, this is like the mama bear, when she's got the baby in the womb and she's pregnant and she's just sort of walking around knowing she's got this thing growing and not letting anything interfere, and just being wholly protective of the new growth. And I think regardless of whether we're mothers or whether we're even women, we understand the phase of being the guardian of the new and what that feels like, especially when you have such a open and innocent, curious love for the new. Like, we know what it's like to make sure a puppy doesn't get trampled on by a bigger animal. We know what it's like to make sure a kitten, or, we've all had some experience in which we could feel that archetypal feeling of guarding and protecting the new. And so I love that stage too. I love the intuitive, energetic, and emotional intelligence and wisdom that gets layered in and cultivated when you get a hit on something. Like, I think that's what that is. And then it layers and you get another and another, and they're similar, and then you're like, oh, I know what this is. I now know that when this comes in, this is what my body, or this is what my intuition, or this is what my surroundings are mirroring to me. I'm real clear now on what my intuition is saying to me. Oh, when that gains momentum and speed, I love that. Another aspect that I love is the test driving, the walking out the new aspects, even in old settings or familiar scenarios. And that can be very vulnerable and fragile. And I just love that stage. I love knowing, okay, this is what I'm doing. Yes, I have my new feelings. I have the way I want to be, and I'm going to go into familiar settings where I would maybe play a different role, or I would people please a little bit more, or I would do something a little bit different just for the sake of it. And I no longer even identify with that. And watching the familiar pulls come in where you almost step back into that dance move where you're like, no, I don't do that one anymore. And you really are noticing, and what a beautiful moment to notice how easy it would have been to go into that, or how it brings up compassion for yourself as to why your former version or identity would go into those moves, right? So releasing the perfectionism around if you do end up talking in a way you used to talk, or engaging in a way you used to engage, or doing the things, you're doing it fully aware. You're doing it with compassion. So, some people, who are giving up smoking, let's say, or giving up any habit, and they're like, oh, I slipped, and I had a drag of somebody's cigarette, or I slipped and I did the gossip, or I slipped and I, judged someone because I was feeling insecure in that moment, or whatever. And you notice it, and it's not condemning, but you notice it and you're done with it. You get that feeling like, but it is on the way out. I know it's on the way out because I actually don't even feel connected to it anymore. It's almost like the habit of the program just came in, and you knew you weren't driving it. You knew it was just sort of on its last momentum of driving itself. And that is a wonderful feeling. The feeling of loving the transformation and loving and accepting where you're at, and also forgiving any setbacks, and recognizing the persistent programs with new awareness and compassion. Another thing that I love about this is filling in the grid with new habits and routines, and making your awakened choices and feeling new. It's like, this feels like September and the first day of school, and you got your new outfit, you got your new backpack, and you got your new lunch, and you got, like, everything is organized. This is Virgo energy, and it feels so innocent and refreshed and purified, and you're ready, and maybe still a little bit wobbly, but feeling like I'm more in the new than I'm in the old. I'm more committed to the new than I am the old. And I just love that. And so this is like, when you've got that trellis or support bracing. Emerging version, this emerging aspect of you, it needs a little protection, similar as to what I was saying before, but I just love this, and seeing the tools and the ways in which we support ourselves in our new version. And this is where boundaries really come in. This is where I understood a bit more about what boundaries actually mean, and how boundaries are not necessarily for others. It's not like a stop sign we hold up in others' faces, but the boundaries are more like, well, I know I feel really good when I get a full night's sleep, and despite the fact that at one time I really enjoyed being a bit of a night owl, I now really like the way it feels to be cozy in bed at 9 and waking up early. I like catching the sunrise. I like these things that support me more than more than the FOMO of the other thing feels like it pulls me. And so, like any natural cycle, we see that there are tools and things to revere for every aspect of a cycle. There are going to be naturally moments where you feel really strong, and moments where you will be tested. And those moments of testing are almost like initiation moments. They're the tests on how well have we integrated. And not how well as in, like, if you didn't integrate well and you totally backslide, or you don't do the thing in the way that you do or that you meant to, that suddenly you didn't get the transformation nailed. It's not like that. It's like, I now have more information, and every time I slip, it's information. It's not failure, it's information. And that's a really compassionate way to approach transformation. And with that said, with any natural cycle, we see that the finality is just the completion of that level, and it always leads to the next beginning. So one of the most exciting aspects of transformation is courting the new with confidence and wisdom. So after we've gone through our cycle of change and transformation and vulnerability and getting steady, and we embark on this new journey, and yeah, it feels new and a little bit vulnerable because of the newness, we have this solid foundation beneath us. We have our 2 feet steady underneath us. So the new doesn't feel like the new used to feel. The new feels like something that's easier to embrace. That's something we can savor. It actually becomes exciting. Then we chase the new, like an adrenaline junkie chases skydiving or, and we recognize that every ending just means a new beginning, and we get excited. It's the moment you clap your hands together and rump your palms together and feel the energy of like, ooh, here we go. And one of the most exciting aspects, as I say, is this courting the new with confidence and wisdom. So this time you're courting change as like an exciting opportunity. You're courting change. You're pursuing change. You're looking at change like, I want you. And I'm so excited about the possibility and potential of our future nows. And this is sort of where I'm at when I'm thinking about completing season 1 and coming into season 2. My vision is so bright and it feels so good. And I'm loving my intuitive, emotional, and energetic wisdom along with my creative strength and confidence. The energy and power that becomes available once you remember it's created inside, and it's supported and multiplied in nature and by internal practices. It's like this feeling of being a kid with limitless overflow. And with that zest and excitement for the new and what's next, I am so excited to welcome you into season 2 and to see where we flow. So this is not just an ending, it's a welcoming, it's a beginning of season 2, and I'll see you in a few. Blessings, peace be with you. I love you. Thank you for taking the time to stop in and listen, as always. So thank you. This is the end of season 1, and see you in a few for season 2.